Welcome to DPC Pediatrician. We're Dr. Phil Boucher
and Dr. Marina Capella, two DPC pediatricians who are on a mission to share our love of direct primary care with you.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited today to have a conversation with Sarah, who is owner of Soul Seed Academy here in my current state of Utah. And she has helped so many entrepreneurs to kind of get started, purpose-driven individuals who want to start a business in a variety of different fields. She has also helped me to get DPC Pediatrician off the ground, and I greatly appreciate all of her help in that. She, in the process of helping entrepreneurs and in the process of having her own business, she has had the experience of hiring tons of people and also having what she calls come to deity conversations with people when things don't seem to be working out very well. And so today I'm really delighted to have this conversation talking about how once you get to the point as an entrepreneur that you need help, whether that's a virtual assistant or an in-person assistant, medical assistant, whatever it is you need, how is it that you find the right people? How is it that you lead and train the people in order to do what you need them to do? And then how do you keep them on track when things start to maybe go a little awry? So welcome, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Okay, yeah, I'm super excited to dive into this. I'm passionate about building not just awesome businesses, but cultures, company cultures, because my motto is life is hard enough, work shouldn't be harder. And that if I can actually create a workspace where my employees feel like this is less stressful to be at work than it is to be at home or the rest of their life, then we have totally won. So I always tell my team that I have their back over any customer, that we have our backs. The customer is never right when it's an argument between staff and customers if we have a culture of trust and good communication. So that way, if something happens with a customer, that there's a complaint or something, I can go to that team member and say, okay, here we have a problem, and dive right into problem solving instead of stroking their ego, making sure they're okay, or making them feel unsafe because they think they're going to be in trouble because this customer is mad. You build this culture of safety within your organization, and it serves you for miles. You don't have to deal with drama. So I think a lot of people get afraid of creating this culture and afraid of taking ownership of this culture. And I was there. I used to be afraid of my employees and I'm not a passive aggressive personality anyway, but just kind of passive and not really calling it what it was. But over time and dealing with some really bad situations and watching other people struggle, I kind of fell into my groove of like how I want my organizations to run. I hire for culture first, training later. I know sometimes you need licensure, but still there are people you need to hire for culture first and then train later. You can train on a system. You can train on SOPs, standard operating procedures, but you can't train somebody to love people. So if your culture is really one of openness and caring, you need to hire that person. You can't expect them to change. So
yeah, one of the frustrations that I see with physicians in the community of direct primary care is that they will be desperate to hire someone because they're at the point where they need help. And so they'll put out a listing and they'll hire someone that seems on paper like a good fit. And then interpersonal issues will arise. And I think we as physicians, we're not always well trained in how to deal with like employee problems. I mean, we're trained on how to like deal with patients and sometimes quote unquote difficult patients, but when it comes to our employees, it's kind of a whole different ball game that we have to manage. And so how does a person hire someone? Let's start with how do you write a job description that attracts the right person, right? Because that's the very first step.
Yes. Okay, so this might go against the advice that other people have said about job postings, but I like to make them very long and I like to really describe what the job is like. So we're used to ChatGPT and auto-generated and crappy job postings, and yours will stand out because it's written from the heart. So some people they just want to go be a nameless number working in a hospital somewhere. Fine, you don't want that person in your DPC. You want someone who is heart-centered and ready to serve, right? So here are the main components of the perfect help wanted ad. And I'm just going to list them out and then I'll give like an example. So the first one is the title. give it a fun title. So in one of my positions, I called it a superhero handyman. Okay,
Yeah.
I needed a handyman, but in my job description, I talked about why they're a superhero. It's not only do I need you to know how to use a screwdriver, but I need you to feel fulfilled when you help someone out. That's the superhero part. So give it a title, like you could call it worried parent happiness specialist. I don't know, like give it some sort of like silly title. And this isn't that your job is silly, but this is an attention getter, because if they go receptionist, 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 customer journey happiness specialist, fairy godmother, unicorn sparkle princess goddess fairy. And they're like, wait a minute, that job sounds different, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is a really catchy title that is open, honest, fun, and clickbaity. Okay. The second is intro to your amazingness. So this is the emotional pull. So this is a job, you are hiring them, you're paying, this is a transactional relationship. But again, the first start of that cultural alignment is to make sure that emotionally they are in line with what you want to do in your company. So the first paragraph could be like, hey, we're a DPC in the Dallas area, and we serve mamas who are naturally minded, who love engaging their children in super exciting childhood play, and who wants a doctor who supports their parenting journey.
Mhm.
Or you could say we are a very specialized clinic dealing with children with high special needs, very medically fragile children. And we do so with a very rigid practice with very, very strong support for our clients, customers, patients.
Mhm.
We just want a paragraph that just describes the general vibe of your office space.
Yeah.
Then you want to introduce your ideal client. So you could say the ideal receptionist / fairy godmother would be someone who loves greeting new people. They're not afraid of technology. They don't have to be the best at technology, because we can train on the computers later, but they love to give out lollipops. They love to problem solve. They love to see children feel better.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the ideal candidate. They can work. You can do a little bit things like they have their own. Well, for me, I employ in a lot of different positions, but sometimes I'll say they need to have their own car, or they need to, depending on the type of job, if it's expected. Then you go into the job includes. Job includes greeting customers or greeting patients, opening the office every day, making sure that the snack room is fully stocked. In parentheses, we love our healthy snacks in our snack room. And then just basically the job description, or if it's an assistant physician or whatever it is, then you take this many appointments per day, and this is what basically the job includes, obviously. Then the time expectations and scheduling. So
Mhm.
I am a little different in the way I hire my team, and I imagine DPCs are a little different too, since you're your own person. You're not beholden to the whole 9 to 5
Yeah.
normal office cycle. I love to find people that normally wouldn't be in the workforce, these like diamonds in the rough. So if you have something in there, like you want to hire, you could hire a mom, but she's only available from 9 to 1 every day because of the school set schedule. Or you want to hire a retired physician who just wants to still keep loving children. You could say something about the time expectations, like, hey, you could set a schedule. Once your schedule's set, then we'll go off of that. But just basically give them the time expectations. Give them a sample day. That's the next part. Sample day, 8 a.m. You arrive, unlock the office, reload the lollipop jar, turn on the cartoons in the waiting room, clean up the play area, the waiting area, open the thing. Step 2 is return all the voicemails from the night before. Step 3 is process the payments from the whatever it is. Like, give them a sample day, checklist day. This is really key, because so much is ambiguous out there. Like, okay, I'm getting hired, and what is it really going to look like? So that'll set you apart. The next thing is the must-haves. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. The must-haves. You must have like the ability to work in the US. You must have this licensure. You must have a working, reliable cell phone or car, whatever your absolute must-haves. Then the next one is why you would love working here. So you would love working here because we have each other's back. Our clients love us. This is the niche we serve. And this is why this would work well for you. When I talk to my hirees, and this will go into the next section about hiring, is I always tell my employees, if this job works for you and you love this job, and this isn't saying that every day is going to be magical and sparkly and lovely. Some days are super hard. But if generally you're emotionally satisfied with this job, then your balance, the balance across your whole life is going to feel better, which we both win. You're going to feel fulfilled. You're going to feel solid and grounded and supported. And I'm going to get your best work. you're going to show up the best way for me, and just call it that it is. I want your best work. So I want to set up this culture so that you can give me I always call it the cream. If your life is balanced, I get the cream off the top, not because I'm taking that from you, but because your cup runneth over. And that is
Yeah.
really the key, is if your employees, your team is feeling supported, they'll give you more, but they'll give from a place of plentiful abundance than from like just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I call it prostitution, but it's not the right the word. You don't want to take from the core soul of who they are.
No, and I love that you really emphasize that, because I think that really is so important. You want to make sure that when you choose someone, it's something that they actually care about, that they want to do, so that it's aligned with their greater life goals, right? If someone is taking a job just because they need a paycheck, that's not a good alignment, right? They're not going to have that cream on top, like you call it, right? They're just going to be showing up, doing what they absolutely have to do in order to get that paycheck, and then going home. And it's just not someone who's going to be really fulfilled, right? I love some of my employees. One of my medical assistants, she's every staff meeting every week, we have a little ritual where we go through and share like something that we're grateful for that week and something that has been a challenge that week. And one of the things that she has said so many times is, I'm so grateful for the flexibility of this job. And I'm kind of surprised when I hear that, because she works so hard the days that she is here, and she's here from like 9 a.m. to sometimes 7 p.m. But the flexibility she refers to is that she's able to drop her kids off in the morning
Yes.
and then show up. And then she has days off. So like in the week, she has Tuesdays off and Fridays off. And so she can take her kids to doctor's appointments and to school things. And so for her, that's just so valued. And she gives above and beyond, partly
Okay.
because she's so grateful for that, what she calls flexibility. And also we're try to be flexible. If someone is sick or someone needs to go to their own doctor's appointment on a day, like we will work it out as a
Yeah.
team. Because
Well, here's the other thing is it comes back to you. If you've been flexible with them and generous with them, and say there's an emergency at 10 p.m. and you got two emergencies back to back or whatever, and you call an employee and you're like, you know what, can you just do this? They're like, sure, let me leave my family party and do this for you, because
Yeah.
they know you normally operate with your hair on fire, and that this is a scheduling conflict you couldn't anticipate. So it really goes both ways. Some people will take advantage of that. Those people need to leave. And we're going to talk about how to fire later.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, but really, when you find it sounds like you found that person, and that's amazing. Yeah, we want a whole office full of them.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay, so you wrote your job description, and
Yep.
now hiring. What are the
Yep.
next?
The last thing about your job description is how to apply. Give them the step by step. Please call us. Please stop by. Please wear your favorite team hoodie when you come to the interview. We want you to really get to know you. Whatever you want to give them that picture of how it feels to work with you. Okay, so now the interview, the hiring and screening. Again, hire culture first, skills later. The first question I always ask in my interview is, have you been and where are you going? And this is not a question that people usually get asked, so they kind of like flounder. And so I usually will give them like breadcrumb. I'll be like, well, tell me what you've done that you've loved about your life, and where ultimately. Give me your crazy pie in the sky dream, what you would do and that's when they will open up and they'll say, well, I was a vet tech for a while, and then I had kids, and then I went through a divorce. And again, you're not asking these questions, but a lot of times they'll self-disclose a lot of this information, personal information. That's okay. As long as you're not asking those things, they can self-disclose. And then you're like, well, tell me about, like, do you still want to work with animals someday? What do you want to do? And they'll tell you, oh yeah, someday I would want to have a rescue. But my kids are little right now. I just need a stable job, whatever it is, right? If they answer and you're like, great, because then your next follow-up question is awesome, or your next statement is awesome. Well, this whole interview, and if you decide to work here, so again, like it's their decision too. If you decide to work here, then I want to figure out how this job is going to further those dreams for you. Because again, I hire usually bottom of the ladder, the entry level jobs for my companies. And so I know they're not going to be there forever. They're not going to be at a $16 an hour job forever. And at least I hope not. And I want to know how they're using this job to further their growth. Because if they can see how this is leveraging for their growth, again, they'll give me a higher quality, and I will in turn be able to support them in their journey better. So if they answer, well, I don't know, I just looking for a summer job. My husband was laid off, and I don't know your job description, because you are going to attract a lot of people with this awesome job job write-up. You are going to attract. If they can't answer the where have you been, where are you going question, that is my first red flag, honestly, because I don't want somebody who's lost. I want, and I'll keep digging. I'll give them like three chances at just asking it a different way. Well, like, what's really on your heart? Like, I know this is a weird question to be asking in an interview, but like, it matters here and you matter here. Where do you really, and then they'll open up usually. Sometimes they don't. And then I try and get out of the interview as quickly as possible, because if I can't see how they're
Mhm.
using this to further their own life, then they can't see how they can help me further the lives of my clients. Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
can't. Yeah. So
Interesting. I love
yeah,
that.
so I have a chart on Google Sheets, and I just have all these questions. I have the self-disclosure questions that I'm not allowed to ask legally, but if
Yeah.
they do, I still take a note of them. And it's basically the questions of like, how have you lifted someone up before? Give me a story of how your presence made one of your coworkers' lives easier or better. And just listen to their response. Was it all about them, or did it come from a servant's heart perspective? Right. So
Mhm. Yeah.
hiring and screening. Expectations for employment. So we can't, at least in our state, we shouldn't do employee contracts that can get you in trouble. So you do employee agreements. So basically this is the description of the job. Do you agree that these are in line with you? And then when you fire, it's not a contract, it's an agreement. So it's just thought languaging. SOPs, how to write SOPs. So a lot of times we're drowning and we want to hire somebody to stop the drowning. And
Uh-huh.
so we give them a time, like, it's like, what did Jim Gaffigan said? It's like, what's parenting? It's like you're drowning and somebody hands you a baby. That's kind of what it's like when you're a founder of a company, is that you're drowning and then you expect that employee to take that burden off you.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets dangerous. And it gets harder before it gets easier, but I promise it gets easier. If you just employ somebody to come in and expect them to fix your systems and
Yeah.
not hold them accountable to write standard operating procedures or SOPs, you've
Yeah.
basically, now you're an employee of your employee. They hold the keys to the boat. They're in control. If they are sick or they go rogue and they start embezzling, or you are in trouble. So
Mhm.
you need to be the one writing SOPs
Mhm.
or instructing your employees on how to do it, how you want them written, and holding them accountable to it. So it might feel like you just hired an employee and gave yourself another job. And you did as a manager until you set up this culture, and then they train each other, and then it gets passed on. And then eventually they're hiring their own staff without your oversight, and you're still getting all the SOPs. And that way, if everything went down one day, all of your employees were sick, and you had to
Yeah.
run the office by yourself, all you would have to do is pull up those SOPs and you would know exactly what your employees do to keep everything running. So
Such a good and important point. I remember when I first hired my very first office assistant, I was getting busy enough that I knew that I did not want to keep doing all those faxes and scans and scheduling. And so I hired my first employee part-time, just initially 2 to 3 days a week. And now she's like at 4 to 5 days a week. But it was my first time hiring someone. And so it's a learning curve, right? And I knew she was a good fit culturally. Like she just brought so much to the table. She had experience in the healthcare industry, and she really cared about giving patients a positive patient experience. So I knew culture fit was great. But she came from the world where she was a scheduler before, at least for the last few years, she'd been a scheduler, and she had scripts that she would go off. And she just begged me. She was like, please, like, Dr. Pillai, I need you to like write like scripts for me, and I need you to tell me exactly what I need to do. So she kind of pushed me into writing those standard operating procedures. And so I kind of, a little bit grudgingly, if I'm honest, because it was like, oh, like you said, like I don't want more work, but it was important. And so I wrote like a little manual for her. It wasn't like super detailed. It was just like mostly a compilation of checklists that I created of like, this is how you schedule these types of visits, and this is how you onboard a new member, and this is how you do this. And I don't think she even like went perfectly off of them, but it was enough to get her comfortable. She was like, okay, like you've given me a template that I can go off of, and I know what you want from me. And then ever since then, she has helped to onboard like 2 new people since then and train them. And she has gone back and improved those manuals. And it's amazing. But I needed to give her the starting point.
exactly. You illustrated that perfectly. And how free are you? And how satisfied does she feel about her job? Like everybody wins. Everybody. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so the next thing is the employee meetings. These were really hard. When I learned this and I really kind of made me nervous because again, very passive. I'm a people pleaser, but I started implementing these even though it was really uncomfortable, and I've seen just change so much come from it. So I tell you, if this feels abrasive or weird, then it's okay. You are like me. If this feels natural, then awesome. You are ahead of the game. But
Yeah.
you need to have a monthly meeting. At the beginning, it needs to be weekly, but then a monthly meeting. And this is the check-in. And so here's your script. The first one is what's working for you?
Mhm.
What's not working for you? How can we improve? What's working for me? What's not working for me? How can we improve? And then a
Mhm.
check in on how is your journey going. So this looks like, hey Marina, how is it? And again, if you had set up this expectation every month that you're going to have this talk, most months nothing exciting is going to be said. But if they know the pattern is there, it creates a very safe space for problems to come up and for you to address them instead of them being swept under the rug and then festering and then blowing up in your face. So it looks like, hey Marina, if you're my employee, hey, I thank you so much for meeting with me today. What's working for you in right now? And you're like, oh, well, I really liked the new system we got, the new copier. Thank you for getting the new copier. That was the printer. The last printer was crappy. Thank you so much. That's really awesome. Great. What's not working for you? Well, we did get the new copier, but it keeps jamming. The paper keeps. So these can be minute things or they can be interpersonal stuff, but now you're hearing about it. You're like, well, copy machine's not working. And also that client that we've been trying to fire because she oversteps our boundaries, she keeps calling. She figured out where I live and now she's stalking me. Right? This isn't working for me. Okay. So and then you can say, okay, great. How would you like this? How would you like to see this solved? Again, like our founder brain wants to solve all the problems. Our entrepreneur brain feels like we're in charge of all of it. But they just told you a problem. And then you say, how would you like to see it solved? And she's like, well, I mean, my husband's really good with printers. Is he okay if he comes in and takes a look at it? And you're thinking, yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's great. Yes, sure. Have him bring in. You'd rather give them an Amazon gift card than to pay a copy person to come in or
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? So you'll be surprised at what you hear at their problem solving, what they want, how they want to see it. And then you either tell them, yeah, we can solve it that way, or how about this? And maybe you do it some redirection. Okay. So then after that, that's the employee centric stuff. Then it's now me. Marina, what's working for me is I love your attitude. I love every morning you come in with a smile, even though I know you stubbed your toe real hard, you broke your ankle, and yet you were still so kind to these clients. And I just love that. You bring such a light to the office. Thank you so much. What's not working for me is the arrival time is getting a little mushy. So the other day you got here at 8:15 and our first patient arrived at 8:19. So they didn't know you were late, but the lights weren't on and it was just a little awkward. So can you tell me what's going on? That's not working for me. Can you tell me what's going on in your life? Are you struggling with the start time? What's your deal? And then she'll tell you. She'll tell you what's going on. So that creates this openness for communication, right? And then the last thing you say is, and how's everything going? Last month your daughter, and take notes. Last month your daughter had a dance recital coming up. How did that go? Oh yeah, they actually went on to win the state championships, and you have this little bit of celebration, right? It's just like this little bit of interpersonal stuff. And I do take notes. And I say like it's the fact that I care about them is what matters to the employee, not the fact that I remember their daughter's name or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big thing, these employee meetings. And then asking
Can I
them,
just say,
go,
real quick, like, in the world of business, the importance of that interpersonal connection is sometimes underemphasized, just because it's so protocolized in a lot of big companies. It's like you have your annual review, and only once a year your employer talks to you and gives you feedback. And it's so tied to like these metrics and like whether you get a raise or not. And we've just like been trained in society to like fear these feedback sessions. And so this is really rewriting the script for people. It's like, hey, this is the healthy way to do it instead of the like dysfunctional, terrifying way to do it. But I think those frequent check-ins are really, really important. And I really love what you said about asking them how they would solve a problem, because sometimes my employees come to me with issues. I now have 5 employees, and I'm like, oh dear Lord, like I'm trying to do this other thing. I have no idea how to solve your problem. And so it's great to just say, like, do you have any ideas? Let me think about it. I don't have anything right now, but what do you think would help? And it also helps them to feel that their voice is valued, because
yeah.
my medical assistant came from a very toxic workplace where she worked for over 10 years, and she almost had like PTSD and these like dysfunctional ways of of viewing bosses because of that. And so it's almost had to be like a deprogramming and
Yes.
having her be like,
Yes.
your voice is valued, your voice is valued, you are amazing, you're so capable, and just really giving her that positive reinforcement and that empowerment. And she has just really soared because
She
of that.
flourished. Yeah. So I'm a recovering people pleaser, passive people pleaser. I guess that's always going to be my personality, right? I'm very empathetic. And so I've given myself scripts and lines to say that are very direct, but cut out all the clutter. Because I could talk to you about 20 minutes about your feelings and my feelings and bonding, bonding. And I do the first week they're employed. I like basically bonds, bond. And then after that, I need to trust that the bond's there. And then I need to say direct things. So I say things like, hey, I'm your boss. I'm not your friend, but I see this, there's a ripple in the force that something's going on. Right. Or I'll say things like, I find myself saying this line a lot because a lot of stuff that happens is part of the deprogramming and detoxing from from what's happening. So I do tell people, hey, so there's a detox period, there's an adjustment period after working in the real world and working with me. There's an adjustment period. And I think I think this problem specifically is a detox problem. And so and I'll just say point blank, you matter. I don't know what the other job did to you, but you matter. And this is why. And I want to remind you why you were hired. And so go ahead and detox, but basically saying this is your problem, this is your trauma you're dealing with, and I recognize it, but it's different here. Let down your guard. And sometimes if people don't let down their guard, like maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5 months, I just had to come to deity. We're talking about that next with an employee. And I had to tell him again, hey, I think you're still detoxing. It's different here. Remember, tell me what you love about this job site. And he told me all the things. And I was like, see, it's different. Other jobs aren't like that. Other places aren't like that. We got this. And he let down his guard and we went back to work. But he just kept feeling like he was going to get in trouble for things. And I'm like, you're not in trouble. You haven't been in trouble. Let's just talk about it. So it's a detox thing. Call it what it is.
That past work trauma is very real. And I think as physicians, we also bring our own work trauma into it. And so in the past, if our interactions with nurses or with medical assistants or with office staff was a certain way because of the rules of the larger organization, we can also bring in our own dysfunctional ways of communicating and of being into that workplace. So we need to be aware that just as much as like our employees can bring that in, what are we bringing in from our past lives or our past work lives? So yeah, I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And this is, again, feeding into that beautiful culture. So the last thing I want to tell you about is my secret sauce for come to deity conversations, come to God, come to Jesus, whatever. I call them come to deity because they make people laugh. Okay.
Yeah.
So I actually tell them, so we have the hiring interview, the screening, but then on the onboarding, I actually tell them my pattern. I say, okay, so everything is great. We're going to have a honeymoon period. It's going to be amazing here. We're so excited to have you join our team. But I just want to tell you what a come to deity talk is, because if or when we have a problem, this is the script I'm going to follow. It's going to be a come to deity. I'm going to tell you it's a come to deity. You won't know it's coming because I don't want to give you any, like, I don't want to freak you out. So I'm going to pull you aside one day and I'm going to say, hey, this is a come to deity talk. Your blood pressure is going to rise. Don't worry. I've already been in fits all night about the talk and it's okay. We're going to get through this. But this is the script I'm going to follow. When it happens or if it happens, it's going to be okay. Okay. So then they're cool. So then when it happens or when it happens, you can say, okay, so this is the talk we talked about in onboarding. Number 1, this is not a firing conversation. I mean, there's sometimes I fired point blank, just done that for really egregious stuff. But again, people first. And so if this is a very serious conversation, I say, first of all, this is not a firing conversation. Okay. Not a firing. Let the blood pressure. There's usually, when it gets this serious, there are often tears, but this is why I like to use this direct communication because otherwise, I'd be a blubbering mess too, and I'm the boss. So I say, okay, this conversation can go one of 3 ways. And I told you this in the onboarding, and so I just want to remind you. The first option is, I want you to stay. You're valuable here. You really matter to us. You've contributed in ways that I can't even thank you for. And you are more important than the mistake or what's happening right now. And so the number 1 is we figure out a resolution and we move forward and everything's great. Number 2 is after this conversation, you decide that this job is really not a good fit and you resign. And if you resign, I am still going to write you a letter of recommendation and I'm going to say these 3 specific amazing things about you. And I've already prepared this in my head because just because they're not a good fit for you doesn't mean they're not a good good human. So I say, I would be happy to write you a letter of recommendation addressing that, oh my gosh, you're so friendly, but you can't show up on time. And you're this, and but you can I won't say anything negative. It's about these 3 positives. And you know that I really do believe in those positives. So this letter of recommendation would be honest. I
Yeah.
think that's really respectful. Option 3 is we do find a resolution, but it doesn't go into practice. And then either we circle back to another come to deity talk, or you would be fired at that point. And then it would be a firing conversation. But again, I don't surprise. I don't like shock my people, but that's the third option. And you're in control. You're in control of all 3 of those. Okay. So I set that standard. Then I state the problem. We talk about it. We come to a solution. And I've had it go all 3 ways, really. And I never really know which way it is. My record is 3 come to deities, 3 hard, solid come to deities. And this employee has now been with me for 3 years. But that first year was a little rough. But each time we came to this conversation, she shifted, she matured, she grew. And she is rock solid, and I hope she'll be with me for another 15. Like so people are worth it. People are worth it. And that is my script for the come to deity. At the end, I just assure them, great, we picked this. Okay, so this is how we're going to hold each other accountable. One of my favorite examples is a gal, and I'm like, hey, so we've noticed that you stop working during the day. You just freeze. You just stop working. What's the deal? Like, this isn't acceptable. It's making our customers uncomfortable and the team uncomfortable. And so this isn't working. And she said, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. I have complex PTSD. And when I have a trigger, it's almost like I go into a seizure and I freeze and I don't know how long I've disassociated. And I was like, geez, bro, that explains it. That's a lot. I said, what triggers these? She goes, when I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, so if you had a job where everything was SOP'd out and was just a checklist and everything was the same every single day, that would not trigger you. And she said, that would help. And I was like, great, let's do it. So we wrote it, and she improved miles and miles. And it was just that come to deity. She wasn't getting fired, but I just needed to know what was going on because it wasn't working. And I have other employees where after the second come to deity, I pull them in and I say, hey, we've talked about this, but the behavior has not changed significantly enough. And so I am recording this conversation, but this is your official termination. Here's your final check. And I will escort you outside of the building. I really thank you for your time and everything you've contributed. And I know this is a lot, but you're safe and I or whatever. I said, you're okay. And this isn't anything personal. Like, you just say the things that you really do mean. You don't want to hurt people. Even if they know where they're coming, even if they know it's coming, it's still kind of a shock, right?
Yeah, of course. It's an emotional thing for most people, right? Yeah.
So there's my come to deity, and it's changed my life.
Yeah. What I love about your approach is that you treat people like people, right? And in the business classes that I've been taking, I think some of the best professors have been the ones who are like, we need to change business. We need to transform the business world in a way that treats people like people, right? They're not just automatons. Our employees are not just productivity machines. Like, they're people at their core, right? And then people don't just come to a job completely matured and completely perfect. Like, we are all a work in progress, right? And so giving people within any employed position the opportunity to learn, to grow, to make mistakes, and to learn from those mistakes and continue their evolution, I think that's amazing. There was this book that I read once, I think it's called Permission to Screw Up, by this college student who ended up starting a cleaning service. And one of the stories she tells is about how one of her employees screwed up the payroll and accidentally issued out checks that were 10 times what they were supposed to be. And so overnight, they just were out to tons and tons of money, and they had to fix the problem. And she could have easily just fired that person on the spot for such a big mistake. But she talked about how she had a conversation with that employee and said, this was a big mistake. Let's talk about how we learned what we learned. Let's talk about how we can prevent this from ever happening again. And she said, if you're okay staying, I want you to stay, because you learned that we paid tens of thousands of dollars for you to learn a very valuable lesson.
Did you know how it happened? Are you going to do it again? Are you sorry?
Exactly.
Move on.
I don't want to have to hire someone else and then
I don't want to pay that tuition again. I call it tuition too. I don't want to have to pay that tuition again. So yeah, I love that. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. People matter more than anything. It really, that's all that matters.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my employees make mistakes and they come to me and I'm like, hey, you're human. I'm human. Like, this is okay. How are we going to learn from this? And then how are we going to put systems in place so that this just doesn't happen again? And I can just sort of see them like feel so like
Relax. And the
relaxed.
last thing you want is for them to hide their mistakes from you, because then
No,
those just fester. Things get bad.
exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I have one employee who like, he kind of tries to like not hide his mistakes, but it's really hard for him to admit when he's made a mistake. And so we're working on that. But I think as long as he continues to show like willingness to grow and progress, I'm okay keeping him on. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah,
These
thanks,
are
Nicole.
really invaluable insights and pieces of advice on how to find the right people, employ the right people, work with the right people, train them, and then once in a while fire them if needed. So I appreciate all of your experience and sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening.